Hello everyone, hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Computer Science 226, lecture number 24. Today is November the 10th, 2020. Today we'll be talking about files. But first off, before we get into that, I wanted to announce that I have updated the syllabus. First off, I don't remember if it was there or not, but no extra credit is added after the reading day. Unfortunately, during the final exams and the reading day, it's very stressful time for both of us, professors and students, of course, and it's very difficult to process all the emails. Unfortunately, I'm afraid I'll be very late if we start accepting extra credit after the reading day, so that's why at some point I stopped allowing students to do that. That's why if you want to get some extra credit, please resolve everything before the reading day. And one more thing, there will be a few logical thinking, math, probability, geometry problems available on this YouTube channel. If you go to the website, if you click on that link, right? Well, I'm pretty sure you know what that is. So, for example, today you're gonna see one of them, right? So it's called two candles problem. Okay, so I have already prepared 9. I recorded the videos. I'm just creating the thumbnails and like all the preparation. But you will definitely very soon see 9 videos, 9 problems. And yeah, so they have different difficulties. You can solve any of them and present your solution to me, proving that you solved them yourselves. Right, like this. No, yourself. Okay. Yeah. Be ready to answer additional questions. Each one of them is worth a different amount of points. Okay. It really depends on the difficulty. So, for example, today you're gonna see the one which is worth 0.5% of extra credit. Okay. So this one is like probably the easiest one out of all of them. Okay. So you can solve as many as you want. I have already prepared 9. Most likely there will be coming more. I will give you up to 5% of extra credit for solving them. Okay, so you can solve as many as you want. That'll be cool, but I'll give you only up to 5% of extra credit. Okay, hope it makes sense. Hope it makes sense. Please check the section if you guys are looking for opportunities to get some extra credit. Files. Yeah, so today we'll talk about the files. I'll quickly introduce what that is, and you guys will need to submit the notes, and there will be some practice exercises. Please do them as well, and submit screenshots along with your notes. Please. Okay, so what did we learn last time? We're talking about throwing exceptions, illegal argument exception, all of that, how to create them. Okay, so now something which I want to tell you is that it's possible to create your own class of an exception. Java provides quite a few exceptional classes. Use them whenever possible, right? However, if you run into a problem that cannot be adequately described by a predefined exception class, right? So, for example, we have illegal argument exception, right? So, what if that's not descriptive enough in your opinion, and you want to create a class which will be called zero argument exception or argument equals 0 exception, right? That's of course not. It doesn't exist in Java, so you need to create your own. And since you see like new legal argument exception, right? So it's a constructor. It's called a constructor, which means any exception is an object, right? So we have classes of exceptions. That's why you can create your own exception class, right? Because exception is just as kind of class as any other class is. That's why you can do that. Yeah, so you can create your own exception class, derived from exception, of course, right? So you need to extend that, or from a subclass of exceptions such as input-output exception. For example, public class invalid radius exception extends exception. Invalid radius, so you can kind of guess what's going on. Double private radius, public invalid radius exception. So that is a constructor for an exception class, right? So there is no return type. Keep that in mind, right? So that's kind of the way you would identify the constructor. There is no return type. Public invalid radius exception. What do we do here? We call in the constructor of exception class, right? With the following message: invalid radius plus radius. That radius is equal to radius. Yes, and also public double get radius return radius. What does it mean? That means we're creating a new class, we extend an exception, we call in constructor of a parent class, which is exception, we're assigning radius to this radius, and then later when somebody catches invalid radius exception, In this case, he'll be able to print out the radius, right? Because you have that in as a private double, and you have a getter for that. So that's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to basically type that up on your Eclipse, and I want you to create a constructor, or not a constructor, but testing methods. I want you to create them in the main class. I want you to create a couple of conditions, let's say 2, where you will be creating those exceptions, throwing them, and catching them, and printing out the results. That's the first thing I want you to do. Now we're coming to kind of like a small, I guess a small part of of Java, which you'll probably will not be using that often, okay? But that's still in our syllabus, that's still in our program. File class. Okay, so what is that? Basically, Java has its own class, which is called file. Okay, so that file is a representation of a file which is located on your computer, and that's basically a way how you can access files on your computer. Okay, for example, you can read from that file, you can write to that file, you can make sure that, for example, it contains some kind of a text, some kind of a poem, or I don't know, something like that. Okay, let's quickly run through all the methods. So we have 3 constructors: file, path name, parent, child, parent, child. Okay, so the path name, what does it do? It basically, you provide in the path on your computer, right? So for example, if you have a Mac, in this case, well, you have a Windows, you would say, like, for example, C colon, then like double slash, I don't know, what is it, Windows, or like users, right? Then probably with U, then like computer science user, then workspace. Okay, you basically need the absolute path, the entire path to your file. Okay, in this case, it's going to create an object of class file, which is going to be a reference, a link, a connection to that file which is on your computer. String, parent and child, string file. Okay, so in this case, we're creating a file object for the child under the directory parent. Okay, the child may be a file name or a subdirectory. We're basically providing a string for a parent directory. Parent means directory, and then we also provided the name of the file as a child. Okay, same thing over here. Creates file object for the child under the directory parent. Okay, so if you're providing file as a parent, right? So for well, yeah. Okay, exists. It returns true or false if the file exists, right? So for example, if you say, for example, workspace slash, I don't know, poem dot docx, okay? So in this case, it returns, so if I create a file with this path, I can say dot exists, and it's going to determine true if that file exists, and that path, right, it's going to determine false if that file doesn't exist. So basically, it is possible, yes, if that file doesn't exist, you create an object, right? It doesn't throw you an error. You kind of thinking that the file is there, but it's actually not. So that's why you always need to check that. Can read, can write. So I think it's obvious. It returns true if it's possible to read that file. If it from that file, it returns or false otherwise. It returns true if it's possible to write into that file, and returns false otherwise. Is directory. Okay, so file, although it's called a file, it can actually be a directory, because technically, although it's not that obvious in Windows, but in Unix, on Mac, you can kind of see that directories are also files, right? So directories are also files which contain other files, files of files. Okay, so it's possible that the file you create actually turns out to be a directory. So if you say is directory, and then it's going to return true if it's actually a directory, false otherwise. Is file is going to do the same thing. Is absolute. So that returns true if file object is created using an absolute path name. So if you use this constructor, then it's going to create true, and false otherwise. Is hidden, of course, if it's hidden, right, from you, if it's not visible, then it's going to return true. If it's visible, it's going to return false. The exact definition of hidden is system dependent. Okay, keep that in mind. So on Windows, you mark file as hidden. On Unix, a file is hidden if the name begins with a period, with a dot. Excuse me. So same thing with Mac, by the way. Okay. Moving on, get absolute path. Okay, so it returns a string. What do you think it returns? Yes, absolute path to the file. Get canonical path returns a string. What kind of string does it return? Canonical path, right? So returns the same thing as get absolute path, except it removes redundant names such that dot from the path name, resolves all the symbolic links, so Unix converts the drive letters into standard uppercase. Well, you can basically look up what canonical path means. It's just, yeah, so just that's what it does. Get name, okay, so what does it do? It returns the name of that file, last name of the complete directory. Okay, so for example, if your file is c.book test. Get name returns test. Okay, so the name of the file, that should be obvious. Get path returns the complete directory in the file name represented by the file. Okay, for example, for the file c test. It's going to return c book test. Get parent, okay, returns the complete parent directory of the current directory or file. Okay, so for example, if your file is created with the constructor cbook test. Then get parent, who is going to return the parent, which is cbook. Moving on, last modified, okay, returns the time when it was last modified. Length returns the file size or 0 if it doesn't exist. Very important, it's going to return the file size in bytes. Well, okay, so hold on, let me make sure. File size Java. Length. Sorry, length. Okay. The abstract path name, directory length in bytes. Yeah. So the method returns length in bytes. Okay. So basically the size of that file in bytes. List file, okay, so it's going to return you an array of files, returns the files under that directory for the file object. So if your file turned out to be directory, you can actually create an array of files located in that directory. Okay, so for example, if my workspace contains a huge amount of files, I can call that method. It's going to return an array of all of those files. Delete obviously deletes the directory or deletes the method. Keep in mind that it returns Boolean. Why does it return Boolean? It means it's going to return you true if the deletion is successful, which means that if your username is not privileged, right? So if you're not allowed to delete the directory, then of course it's not going to be able to delete the directory. It's going to return false. If you're allowed to do that, it's going to return true. Rename to destination file. Okay, so same thing, Boolean, right? So when it says Boolean, that means if the operation is successful, it's going to return true, false otherwise. Rename to renames the file or directory represented by file object to the specified name represented in the destination. The method returns true if operation succeeds. Okay, obviously again renames the file into whatever you specify here, like as a file, right? Make directories. So make a dir, like mkdir is the shorthand for make directory, which means create directory. That's a console name for Windows. And hold on, how does it work on Linux? Does it work the same way in Linux? Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. So yeah, make directory creates a directory. Returns true if it's possible to create a directory, because it's possible that your user name is not allowed to create directories, and returns false otherwise. Make directories, right? So same as make directory, except that it creates a directory along with its parent subdirectories if the parent directories don't exist. What does it mean? Let's imagine that here you have. Imagine you creating something like this, right? And in this case, imagine that in your computer, only this part of the file, only workspace directory doesn't exist. but it does not contain A and B inside of A and C inside of B. Okay. In this case, it's going to create A inside the workspace, B inside of A, and C inside of B. That's how it works. So this one is not allowed to do that. This one will only work if you have something like this, a.doc. Okay, so you have C, you have users, you have CS user folder, you have workspace folder, and you have nothing in it, or you don't have an a.doc. In this case, we'll be able to create a.doc there. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, so that's what I need to do. I want you to practice with Eclipse. Okay, I want you to. Well, first off, I want you to create a file or download some kind of file. For example, like as.gif. Download any kind of file or create any kind of file in where. So if you go to your Eclipse, then in this case your file will be, hold on. So how does it work? You have the disk drive, then you have workspace. If you have Windows, of course. Workspace, then you have I think you have users, then your username, then you have your workspace, and then you have a projects. So go to project folder. Okay, go to project folder, then go to the current project. Okay, yeah, so project folder, then go to it's either like so create it in the project folder or create it in the source folder. Okay, so it's by default it's going to pick up one of those two locations. I think it depends on the version of another compiler, but Eclipse. So it's all specific to Eclipse. You can actually change that in the settings. But anyway, I'm not sure what it was in the last one, but it's definitely either the folder of your project or the source inside of the folder of your project. Okay, and after that, just do this. All of that, make sure that it works. Basically test almost all of those methods. File input and output. Okay, so what can we do? So since we have those files and we can execute those methods, it's obvious that we can also write to those files and we can read from those files. For example, java.io.printWriter class can be used to create a file and write data to the text file. First, we have to create printWriter object for the text file as follows. PrintWriter output is equal to new printWriter file name. So yeah, that's how you create a printWriter. So printWriter is basically so instead of saying like system.out.println, which prints out into the console, you can do something like this, and that's going to print out into the file. So for the print writer, what methods do we have? Constructor, right, with the file, and then constructor with the file name as a string. Print, so like print line, right? So print with an S as a string, right? So we can print a string, we can print a character, we can print an array of characters, we can print an integer, we can print a long, can print a float, double boolean. So that's method overload in here. Also contains overloaded println methods. Okay, so you can do print with these many parameters, and you can also do the same with println. It's going to work exactly the same way as it works with system.out.println. And you can also format the print using printf. Okay, print formatted. Hope it makes sense. Yeah. So here's an example. You locate in the main file, which is throws input/output exception. Okay, that's actually important. Okay, so java.io.file new java.io.file scores.txt. Okay, so it's going to create a file which is located in your project folder, scores.txt. If that file exists, it's possible it doesn't exist again. If that file exists, then you print out file already exists, and then you exit. By the way, system.exit, what does it do? It basically cancels, it doesn't close Eclipse, but it quits, it kind of quits the main, not only the main method, but the whole Java virtual machine. And one is a status, successful status. Well, no, hold on. No, one actually is an error. Yeah, so if you quit with 1, that means something wrong happened. If you quit with 0, that means everything was fine. Okay, so if that file exists, then kind of what's the point of doing anything else? So you quit. If that file doesn't exist, then you create it. So you say java.io.printliner output is equal to new java.io.printliner with a file, right? So that file. So you pass in the file object into the constructor. Output print John T. Smith. So what does it do? It's going to write this into the file called output. Right, so basically that's what you're going to have at the end. In the scores.txt file, you're going to have John T, since it's print, not println, then space, then println 90, so kind of his grade of John Smith, right? So 90 out of 100. Then Eric K. Jones, print with a space, then 85 here. So scores.txt is going to contain this textual information inside. Output.close. Okay, so you need to kind of create a stream. You create in a stream of symbols, and then you close in the stream of symbols. So what I want you to do, I want you to, hold on, yeah. I want you to do that. I want you to try that out. I want you to write this code, and I want you to check out that scores.txt. I want you to make sure that the output of this file is exactly what you see over here. Not the output, but the content of the scores.txt is exactly what you see here. And last exercise, which I want you to do, I want you to create, using this knowledge of PrintWriter, I want you to create a file called baseball.txt, and I want you to write this inside. Okay, of course, using not try catch, but throw in the input-output exception and using all of those precautions. By the way, question for you. So you see it says throws, okay, but where is it throwing? So you see it says like main function throws an exception, but over here I don't see any like throw new exception, right? So how is that possible? Tell me how it's possible. Yeah, cool. That's it for today. I'll see you guys on Thursday. We're going to have a quiz. Quiz will be based on this and what we discussed last time, what we discussed on Thursday last week. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye. Have fun.